India Tonight. I'm Shibani Gharat, and joining me in our Mumbai studio is my colleague Ankita Saxena. Now, a lot has unfolded in the past 24 hours, Ankita. As we know, in the last 24 hours itself, US President Donald Trump has taken some very significant decisions that could shape the entire geopolitical situation. Republican Senator Lindsey Graham has announced that Trump has given a nod to the bipartisan Russian sanctions bill that could penalize Russia's trading partners. Now, the bill, if passed, could authorize the US to levy as much as 50% tariff on countries purchasing Russian oil or uranium. Now, the countries that would be most impacted by this would be India, China and Brazil. In an already strained relationship, this proposed bill is further straining the ties between India and US, isn't it, Ankita?
Absolutely. In fact, while on the other hand, US aims to cripple Russia economy with the tariff bill, Trump has also announced increasing American defense budget to $1.5 trillion. Now, the US wants to increase its defense spending to create what Trump calls a dream military. While on one hand, Trump wants to weaken Russia economically, on the other hand, he is talking to strengthen the military to take on Moscow.
Absolutely, Ankita. Now, to discuss this and more, we have amazing panelists, very senior set of panelists with us, joining us today. We have Navroop Singh, IPR attorney and author, Jen Das Gupta, former ambassador, and S.T. Ralan, who's the president of FEIO. Welcome to ET Now, gentlemen.
Thank you.
You know, so much has transpired in the past 24 hours. Ambassador, given, the geopolitical color and, the diplomatic nature of, what is going on in the world politics right now, due to some of the decisions that Trump has taken in the past 24 hours or even the last 48 hours, how do you read the situation and, how is it going to impact, the relationships between US and different nations and also its traditional allies going forward as we step into 2026?
It's a tumultuous period and everything is in a state of chaos because the rules of international law are not being followed. The president of a sovereign nation has been abducted by the military without declaring war on the country, and that is just the beginning. As far as the US's other actions are concerned, it has threatened Colombia, the president. It has threatened Mexico, which has been a close ally of the US. It has threatened Cuba. It has threatened to take over Greenland, which is part of Denmark, a NATO ally. And the NATO countries have been up in arms on this threat. And they have said that this would signal the end of NATO. And as far as oil is concerned, President Trump's, I think, cabinet members have mentioned that 30 to 40 million barrels of oil will have to be handed over, or the proceeds will have to be given to the US, which will keep it in an account for the benefit of Venezuelan citizens. So effectively, the US is going to control the treasury of Venezuela and run the government. That is what transpires. But it may not be possible. That is another issue because Delcy Rodriguez is the president in charge now of Venezuela. Of course, he may be browbeaten and bullied into agreeing to most of what the Trump administration wants her to do. But still, it is an independent country. So the short point is that the whole international order, which has been, I think, assiduously cultivated by the Committee of Nations, that is in a state of flux. Added to that is the withdrawal of the US from 66 international organizations, some of which are UN-related organizations, some outside the UN. And very important amongst them are the UN Framework Convention for Climate Change and the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change. Now, the US is the largest polluter on this planet. And if the US, of course, effectively the US had repudiated the Paris Agreement, but it was still a member of the UNFCCC. Now it is going to pull out of that also. So climate change is one of the major threats looming ahead before the world. And already there are signs that the temperature has risen by about 1.4 to 1.5 degrees Celsius from the pre-industrial levels. And should it cross 2 degrees Celsius, there would be catastrophic effects,
right,
especially on the island nations, poorer countries, countries which are located in the tropical regions.
Right, Mr. Dasgupta, point taken. But Mr. Radhan, let me come to you. Now, the number that Trump is likely to impose, a 500% tariff, that number by itself is absurd, and it is actually quite redundant, if you will. And this comes very strategically when on the heels of Sergio Gore's visit to India to discuss tariffs. Yet again, a pressure tactic that has been used. What could be the course of discussion now that India and US are going to get into the tariff discussion? What's going to be on the table?
You're asking me?
Yes, Mr. Alan.
Yeah, actually 500% if he puts that tariff, so it will be the biggest jolt for the Indian exports. And I think government should do something. Otherwise, it is almost 40% of the exports to US. So it will be affected very badly. I don't know whether, see, the government of India has already reduced the quantity of the crude oil. This is a government decision. I can't comment on that. But it will be a biggest jolt to the exports. I think it will be almost standstill to US.
Yeah, absolutely. Over to you, Navroop, Mr. Navroop Singh. With Trump backing the 500% tariff on the Russian oil buying nations, how can India legally and diplomatically defend its strategic autonomy without triggering a complete trade fallout? What should be the Niti Shastra over here that India could apply?
Well said, good question. The thing is that India needs to, engage diplomatically via Sergio Gore, as well as through back-channel diplomacy through our corporates. And probably we could offer buying more US LNG and US oil. We've already seen a little bit of, the Russian oil falling down to 4 to 5 months. So a temporary reduction of a couple of months, if that can get us a reprieve of 20-25% and stave off this 500% tariffs. So this can be really, be a bigger relief. And I think we need to diplomatically engage our ambassadors, our envoys, our trade representatives. They need to constantly engage with the US. Maybe, diversifying towards, Russian oil and American oil and LNG by Reliance or other companies or private companies, and the PSUs can equally balance the Russian oil and company, because the strategic balance has to be maintained between US and Russia, because both are critical to India's strategic calculus in the region and globally. So having said that, you will have to engage Trump, and, all this, that is the only way going ahead. And to get these tariffs on, probably lobby with the senators, probably engage with Mr. Lindsey Graham, make them understand, thing. And I think the bigger point over here is what this is the elephant in the room is, literally the Supreme Court ruling, which has probably spurred this act, moving of this act, because the Supreme Court is set to rule tomorrow morning by US time. By this time, we'll have the ruling, and they are likely to rule certain reciprocal tariffs or ultra virus of not having the power. So the country which are most impacted, like India, Brazil, who have 50% tariff, tariffs. So Trump may want to reimpose. So the other options are either reimpose a fentanyl tariff on India, which makes no logic, or he uses this act to impose another 25% back on India, what the Supreme Court strikes down. So I think the bigger thing, India should be first to wait and watch what happens tomorrow in the hearing and what steps the Trump administration takes. At the same time, we need to engage and probably diversify, probably try to placate. So there needs to be, a multi-pronged approach to it. That's my take.
Right. Ambassador Dasgupta, let me come to you. Besides this, there's another thing that's really happening is that the United States has raked up its Greenland annexation rhetoric. He's also wanting to propose a 50% hike in the military spends to $1.5 trillion. Now, is this something to lose sleep over just yet, or is this but a flash in the pan? One of those Trump tantrums?
There are two issues which you have raised. The US already has an overwhelming superiority in terms of its military might on all other countries except for Russia and China. And Russia and China, because they are also nuclear powers which are don't see eye to eye with the US on all issues, unlike the UK and France, which are also nuclear powers. So that, whether he spends $1.5 trillion or even more is a moot point. It really doesn't make much of a difference. The US already has a very sizable superiority in terms of its strength, military strength. As far as Greenland is concerned, I think this is a very serious issue, apart from what he has done in relation to the Venezuelan president's abduction, because this is laying claim on a sovereign country's territory and saying that I will go in if necessary and just annex it. And there are, as somebody was mentioning, the deputy chief of staff's wife has, posted some photo on which there is an American flag planted on Greenland. So this is the kind of provocation which is being doled out on a continuing basis. And Trump being what he is unpredictable. So he may actually give effect to his rhetoric and his threats. And that will be the end of the Europe-US coalition, which has maintained a semblance of order all over the world and maintained peace across the Atlantic. So these are very serious issues, and one can't predict what President Trump will do. And the other point is there is no logic to negotiating with someone who is totally unpredictable, who may go back on his word. He may promise something today and say, I never did that, and then go back on his commitments and promises.
Over to you, Mr. Alan. If ahead of Sergio Gore's visit to India, what is the single most important concession, in fact, if you can share with us, that FIEO is willing or wants the Indian government to extract to protect its billions of dollars of, export momentum?
Actually, the government must pressurize or put their best efforts to so that the BTA is signed with the US. That is very, very important. Otherwise, Trump is unpredictable. He has just announced it. He has given the indication by once he goes, puts the 500%, oh my God, the exporters will be in trouble. 40% of the exports is to US. The most affected items will be the leather goods, the furniture, the engineering goods, everything, pharmaceutical. So I have no words to say what will happen to exports.
Right. Okay. Ambassador Dasgupta, let me come to you. So now that the meeting on tariffs is likely to begin now with Sergio Gore in India, talk to us about what is going to be on the table for the talks, since we are going to start now and we are starting with 50% tariff now.
Sergio Gore is only the ambassador. There have been ambassadors in the past also, and they are interlocutors, but the main decisions are taken in Washington. So I don't really see, he may be a confidant of the president, as most ambassadors are of the head of state. But that doesn't mean that, you can get concessions or you can make demands on Sergio Gore. I don't think he is all that high in the pecking order. So it has to be sorted out with President Trump himself. And being the kind of person that he is, I don't see, that it is going to be an easy task. It has already been going on since last February 25, ever since he took over as president, and it has been 11 months, and we are yet to see the end result. And several times in the interregnum, he has said that we are very close to a deal, we are about to sign a deal, etc. So one doesn't know where the truth lies.
Absolutely. Navroop Singh, over to you. Now, Trump has a renewed interest in Greenland, and that in fact signals like a highly transactional real estate kind of approach to the entire geopolitics that we have seen over the past what transpired over the past couple of days since the start of the week. From a legal and sovereignty standpoint, how should the global South view this entire situation, given your expertise in this matter?
See, the thing is, U.S. has implemented the Monroe Doctrine in this case to stake its claim over, first of all, Venezuela, the overthrow of the regime and taking out Maduro. Then Colombia, and as Mr. Ambassador also said, and now they are taking over Greenland. The Greenland claim is mainly due to the rare earth mineral and the resources in the Arctic ways, to counter China and Russia's expanding Arctic partnership. So they want, like Western Hemisphere for myself. However, Greenland is a part of Denmark, and it's a sovereign territory. So I read a suggestion that probably US could offer a purchase agreement, where so something like what Russia offered Alaska, to US a couple of centuries back. So that kind of an agreement is there. But on the global South point of view, you have to be really circumspect, because the problem is the rules-based order, as we knew since post-World War II, has broken down. Countries are just, the Americans are moving in, taking out the president's unprecedented stuff. They are claiming over territory which are not theirs, again unprecedented stuff. Then yesterday they chased a Russian tanker in the Atlantic, the North Sea, just next to the Greenland and Iceland area, again unprecedented stuff. So what we are seeing is very unprecedented, and this makes the case for countries specifically out of US sphere of influence, or outside the US sphere of influence, to diversify and in their reserves, so that another Russia of like 2022 doesn't repeat with them. And also to make credible deterrence. Countries like India, country like Iran, country like they all be supposed to think, can we rely on United States as a reliable ally? Even countries like Saudi Arabia are also virtually having relationship with China and Russia in OPEC plus, and those trading oil in yuan. And this is one of the reasons because there is a non-dollar trade of oil which is happening between the BRICS plus countries, which is another thorn in the relationship between India and America.
Absolutely.
And
on that note, if I were to ask you, how should India counter this entire narrative of energy security choices, funding a war machine, actually, which is in this question Russia, especially when US itself is, massively scaling up its military capabilities, is what Trump made a statement about.
Correct. See, like the whole issue of energy security, being tied down, you are funding the Russian war machine is pretty bogus, because Russia is also importing, US is also importing uranium from Russia, which is 25% of the uranium come from Russia. Titanium come from Russia. Fertilizers come from Russia. So, and you have treasury notifications for exemptions of that, by the way. They're still not tariffed, or they're still not sanctioned. So they themselves are importing to say that to India, that, oh, you are the culprit, you are the funding. What about the European? The European are also doing it. At the same time, see, the whole point over here is there is a breakdown of understanding between these three major powers, which I call, like US, China, and Russia, on certain issues of trade, certain issues of tariff, or certain of commodities. Then there are various states which are erupting. And then you have interlinked conflicts. So, one side you have Ukraine, one side you have Iran, likely to ignite anytime soon. Next time, in next few days or weeks. So again, like we are, and even Iran is about, again, oil trade, because Iran is trading oil with China in yuan. And you saw the kind of, secondary sanctions America imposed for, the oil trade with Iran on Indian entities, on Chinese banks as well. So this is the kind of unipolar hegemony, which is unilateral action, action which the Americans are taking. That needs to be countered. And for that, India needs to, to strategically hedge with Russia, strategically, maybe even establish a working relationship with China. China is our no friend. But at the same time, today the government is thinking of allowing, Chinese companies to bid for contracts and probably diversify, get more FTAs with UK. UK is done. Oman is done. Maybe get a FTA with European countries. You diversify, and at the same time you keep on negotiating with the Americans. And plus, you need to build credible defense deterrence. We need to spend on defense indigenization. We need to make sure that we have those. We need to take a deterrent, because we are in a hostile neighborhood, and especially with a country like Pakistan, which is backed by America. Jamil Munir, we know it.
Right. Your closing comments, Ambassador Das Gupta. Now, we did see just 2 days back, we had the UN Security Council come out and condemn US's attack on Venezuela. But really, at this juncture, the UN is completely behaving like a toothless tiger. About time that there is some concrete decisions that are taken, because this unilateral behavior that the US is really showcasing right now, it just doesn't threaten now the trade dynamics, but also world security.
Well, the abduction of President Maduro is totally against the UN Charter, Article 2, Sub-Article 4 of the UN Charter, which is the foundational principle of the UN, that one country will not threaten or use force against another. And that has itself been violated. So no matter how many UN Security Council discussions take place, and the US has a veto in any case, so nothing will come out of the Security Council. So, we are in a situation of stalemate, and we are all watching and waiting for President Trump's next move. So it is an unprecedented situation, as the previous speaker has mentioned. And I don't know really as to what lies in store for the rest of the world. And I entirely agree with the point that trading will go on. Countries need to hedge their bets, need to diversify their destinations, and look beyond the US. If the US imposes 500% tariffs, 500 is only a headline-grabbing figure. And there are many ifs and buts on whether this bill, which is a private two-member bill, Lindsey Graham and Richard Blumenthal of the Democrats, whether it will actually get enacted, because the Republicans themselves are now increasingly getting disillusioned with President Trump. The Democrats, of course, don't want to give him any handle for any success. So it is unlikely that Blumenthal will get the support of the Democrats, because it is basically going to hand over on a platter kind of sanction against China and push the Russians to the wall so that the Ukraine war can come to an end. And that would be, President Trump will again keep, saying that he has solved another major problem in the world. So I
Absolutely,
don't
indeed.
think it is really, there are chances that this bill will not see the light of the day.
Yes.
And this 500%, of course, is neither here nor there. Even 50% has done enough damage.
Enough
Were
damage
it
to
to
the
be raised to
exporters.
100%. Yes.
Indeed.
Were it to
Indeed,
be raised to 100%, it would have the same effect. And whether you raise it to 500% or 5,000%, trade will not take place at those levels of tariff. Because your
Absolutely,
competitors are
Ambassador.
at 19 and 20%.
Yes, Ambassador, point taken. And thank you so much, Ambassador Das Gupta, Mr. Ralan and Mr. Singh for joining us today, for sharing your inputs and insights on this. Now, moving on, President Donald Trump has also signed an executive order suspending support for 66 international organizations, many tied to United Nations. The move targets groups focused on climate and labor, which the administration